What's going on? It's me again. I'm testing out a new camera setup here, so we'll see if this actually works. Without taking a walk, taking a break from doing some editing, and grab this hat, ping. I can swing a golf club. Used to play quite a bit of golf. Started playing golf at the age of 7, so it's been a few decades. And I got to thinking about a video that I made the other day, about a month or so ago, about Linux. And it got a lot of attention, more so than all the other videos I made on that channel. And I realized that people are really passionate about their operating system when they're Linux users. And that's okay. People often spend time on what they're passionate about, not on what makes money. So be it. But the premise of that video is that Linux is never going to be widely used as a desktop. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. And the reason for this is because the people who puts out these distributions, they do not understand the average user. I mean, the average user is your Mac user or your Windows user. They are used to something that's simple, intuitive, plugs up and just works. They do not have the time nor the patience to go learn how to use their computer. Now, you may have the philosophy, well, hate to be them, and I understand that. I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, I get it. I have pride in my work. If somebody doesn't understand it, that's their fault. I have that attitude too, but that attitude is actually wrong, and it's conceited and prideful, and it needs to stop. What needs to occur is everyone in the Linux community that does any type of development whatsoever needs to put more effort in their documentation. I mean, like a lot more effort. I'm a pretty smart guy. And when I go in there and I look at a program and I look at the documentation, I expect to be able to figure it out the first time I read it. And some of this stuff is so poorly documented. I got to hunt, peck, look at tutorials, everything else. And I'm a busy man. I've got kids, I've got a wife, I've got responsibilities. I don't have time to be doing that. Most people don't have time to be trying to figure out stuff when they should have been able to figure it out when they looked at your documentation. So you need to, especially if you're a developer in the Linux community or you develop any type of software, you need to get over yourself. You need to drop the pride act, the conceit act, and realize that not everybody thinks like you do. I suffer from this too. Not everyone thinks like you do, and you need to help them understand why you built things the way you built it and how it works. And it needs to function and work like other things in that operating environment. It needs to be similar. Now, I hope more people get this message, and there's more developers that listen to this and actually, take me up on what I'm saying here, because I think the Unix, Linux operating system, especially for desktop, is a great thing. When I'm finally starting to get into it after years of playing with it on and off. This time I'm committed to it because I got to get away from Windows. I'm not going to Windows 11. I'm just not going to do it. I refuse to do it. If I end up going to some employer or contractor or something, and they have that, that's fine. I'll use it no more than I have to, but I'll run an instance of WSL on that machine and do everything I can in WSL that I possibly can, or just run a virtual box on top of it. I'm not going to sit there and just live in Windows 11 without a fight. It eats up too much memory. It's just slow. And the other thing is that once you go text, you can't go back, right? You know what I'm talking about. Once you understand that your computer works with text and that the software and everything else works with text, and you understand that text files are the best types of files to work with, CSV files. They're so extensible. I can do anything with them. You can manipulate them however you want to in a Unix environment. And it's just amazing that they were able to develop all that stuff, 40, 50 years ago. And it still works and still so usable. Awk, SED, grep. Once you start using those things, it's hard to leave them. So I intend to stay there. But one of the reasons I bring all this up today is my ping hat. For those of you who aren't golfers, Ping makes golf clubs. Okay. And I'm going to tie all this together right now. And one of the things that Ping does that no one else does is they color code, red, green, blue, white dots on their club heads. And there's a reason for this. Those correspond to different types of golfers, essentially height-wise or stance or what have you. And what it is it's a pseudo semi-custom fit for you. Of course, you get a longer shaft on the golf clubs, which I have on mine because I'm so tall. They do that because they're trying to communicate one thing to the consumer, and that is we have you in our minds when we develop our product. We have you in our minds when we develop our product. And that's what Ping is saying to the consumer by the very nature of their product. Conical, people behind Ubuntu, Debian, these other people, some of these other distribution entities that are responsible for throwing these out there, they don't have the end user in mind. I have wanted to use NixOS, Arch, Arctics, a lot of these other ones, but it just takes so much time to set up, and there's so many things that goes wrong. Perhaps it's user error. I'm sure it is. In fact, I'll just go ahead and take the blame. I'm just too dumb to figure it out. Okay, I end up using Pop! OS on almost all my boxes at the house, and I don't necessarily like it because it's a layered system on top of Ubuntu, but I can't get anything else to work right. And I think one of the reasons that Pop! OS is actually so robust is because it's actually coming from a for-profit corporation, System 76. To me, that's one of the reasons it's actually working. And I think until there's more of that out there, we're not going to have a lot of distributions widely accepted. So when people say, yeah, I use Pop! OS, you can make fun of them all you want, but I guarantee you what they ain't doing is sitting there reading a bunch of documentation to figure out how to operate their computer. They're over there operating their computer because it works. Now, I've had issues with Pop! OS too, don't get me wrong. I've broken a box. I've done it. But, I was able to get up out of it and reload it and rebuild that box. But I guess I say all that to say this. Because there's not profit in this community, and not a lot of it, especially the open source, Unix, Linux community, there's not a lot of incentive to get really good with your documentation or really care about the end user. And I think that's one of the things that is lost in the open source community. There needs to be some sort of a way to make them care about the end user, and sadly the only way to do that is to charge money. That's one of the things that are broken in the open source economy, so to speak. And I'm not for that. I love open source, but it's a labor of love on these developers' parts, so they don't have the real incentive to go ahead and do all that work that's needed. I get that, but I don't know, something's got to change. Something's got to change, because we just can't keep letting Windows come out with Windows 12. My goodness, can you imagine what a nightmare that stuff's going to be? I can't imagine all the boxes that are about to flood the market because they can't run Windows 11. If you want a good computer, hold up for about 14 months. When everybody starts switching over, all these IT departments start dumping these old boxes, i7s, i9s, everything else, simply because they just can't run this heavy laden Windows 11 system. It's gonna be like candy. Pick up anything. But you a Frankenbox. I don't know. That's all I got. Talk to you later.